What's up, guys? So I recently bought some new books from one of my favorite local bookstores, and then I also put in some orders to Book Depository and Biblio.com. So I'm making just a quick book haul video to share the joy of new books with you. So I'll just jump into things in that case. On the one of the books that I got from my favorite local bookstore is one that I kept meaning to read over the last few years, but unfortunately I could never really find it at any of my local bookstores. But this time I was lucky to be able to find it. So that book is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor, and you might actually recognize the author's name from her Binti trilogy, which won a bunch of awards and is generally beloved by many people. And if you haven't read it and you're a fan of science fantasy, I would definitely recommend it. So yeah, I'm hoping to read this in early 2021. And from what I understand, this book takes place in a post-apocalyptic Africa and it involves magic in some way, but I don't know much more than what the description tells us, but I'm excited to read it. And then the next book, similarly, I was lucky to find at my favorite local bookstore, and that is Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. And similar to Who Fears Death, I've been looking for this book for a while now and was never really able to find it in any of my local bookstores. But this time I looked out, so I grabbed it and I'm excited to read it. Anyway, I'm also hoping to read this in early 2021. From what I understand, this is a fantasy novel, and it is heavily influenced by Senegalese folklore. So yeah, hopefully early 2021, and we'll see. I'm excited. It's been a long time coming for both of those books for me. And another that I grabbed, also from the same bookstore, is from a Carol Berg series that I hope to read this year, hopefully in December, but we'll see. And that is called Bridge of Darnath. So I actually bought the third and the fourth books of this one earlier this year, probably in August or thereabouts. And then I recently went looking for the first and the second books in the series so that I could actually read the series more recently. And I was able to get my local bookstore to order in the second book, which is Guardians of the Keep. But sadly, the um, the the first book, sorry, in the series, which is called Son of Avenar, is out of print. So they were not able to order it in for me, but I did find it on biblio.com and apparently it is on my way to me as we speak. So I'm excited to receive that and then hopefully read it in December, if not then early 2021, January 2021 or something like that. But I don't think I've heard too many people or anyone really talking about it on YouTube or elsewhere as much, so I'll just read a quick blurb from the first book, just so I don't spoil things by reading the blurb from the second book. So it reads, Magic is forbidden throughout the four realms. For decades, sorcerers and those associating with them were hunted to near extinction, but Ciri, a Lyran noblewoman living in exile, is no stranger to defying the unjust laws of her land. She is sheltering a wanted fugitive who possesses unusual abilities, a fugitive with the fate of the realms in his hands. So yeah, we'll see. I am excited to read this one too. This one actually is kind of part of one of my plans for this year was to try to read a couple more lesser known or lesser read series by women authors. So Carol Berg was one of those, and I was also hoping to get to Sherwood Smith's Inda series this year as well, but that obviously isn't going to happen. Probably in early maybe February, March of 2021. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited to read some Carol Berg at last. Anyways, the fourth book that I got from the same local bookstore was Ravenor by Dan Abnett. And to keep in with my theme of books that I've been trying to read that I haven't been able to find locally, this one is that same situation. And anyway, so this is the first book in the Ravenor trilogy, and it's also part of the larger Warhammer 40k universe. And this is actually a funny story with this one is that I already own the second and third books in this trilogy, and I actually found them for free in my apartment building laundry room, just because sometimes people will leave books there that they don't want. So I grabbed those two from there, and ever since I've been trying to get a hold of this one here, mostly because I was trying to get it in the same edition that those two were in, but I wasn't able to do that. So we've got this edition here, and you know what? I'm fine with that. I just really want to read this trilogy now. So yeah, I'm excited. And to carry on with that theme, um, so these were also books I tried getting from my local bookstore, but again, sadly out of print. I had bad luck this time with out of print books. So that led me to Book Depository, where I was able to find the next three books in the Horus Heresy series. I've read 7 of the Horus Heresy books so far, and I plan to read Battle of the Abyss next. So I wanted to get the next 3 books after that, just because when I read a Horus Heresy book, I usually want to read 2 or 3 in a row. So I just wanted to make sure I had some in reserve here. Anyway, so the ones that I bought from Book Depository were Mechanicum and a short story collection, Tales of Heresy, and then Fallen Angels. So yeah, I'm looking forward to these 3 books after I finish Battle for the Abyss. Um, and yeah, for anybody who has never read the Horus Heresy series, as you saw, similar to the description there that I read from Ravenor, it's basically about genetically modified super soldiers called Astartes. And of course, each legion is ruled by a Primarch, and everything else ruled by the Emperor of Man, who created both the Astartes and the Primarchs. But eventually, as the name Horus Heresy suggests, some legions fall into corruption or become corrupted, and they turn against the Emperor, and this is the story of how that happens. Anyways, I highly recommend the Horus Heresy series and Warhammer 40k books in general if you're into military science fantasy. And I know I've seen a lot of questions of people who ask, can I read the Horus Heresy series or any Warhammer 40k books without having played the games? And I would say yes, definitely. I actually have never played Warhammer myself, but I feel that the world is really, really well described and introduced to us in the Horus Heresy series. And yeah, even if you haven't played the games, I would still recommend reading them. Anyways, I will move on with that said. So the next 2 books I have, actually, when I bought from, like I mentioned, my favorite local bookstore. I bought these also for my partner who wanted to read these, but let's be real, I'm also going to be reading these as well. So those are the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, and then The Last Supper Before Ragnarok by Cassandra Khaw. And I loved Grady Hendrix's Horror Store, even though My Best Friend's Exorcism wasn't really as much my thing. Horror Store I thought was a hilarious horror comedy looking at corporate culture and that kind of thing. It's basically a haunted knockoff IKEA store, and I loved it. I laughed a lot while reading it. My Best Friend's Exorcism wasn't really. I guess I was expecting something different from it that I didn't quite get, but I still liked it. It wasn't. It just wasn't good as Horror Store. But I'm excited to try out the Southern Ladies Guide book Southern the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I always throw in a Southern Ladies in there. I don't know why, but anyways, I'm excited to read it regardless of what the name is. Um, and then the Cassandra Khaw book. Actually, this is the second group of novellas in this series, and I'm still trying to get a hold of the first group of novellas in this one. But I had previously read her novella duology, the Persons Non Grata duology, and I really loved it. It was some of the best Lovecraftian, uh, modern Lovecraftian horror that I've read, I think, and I would definitely highly recommend it. She's one of these authors, Cassandra Khaw, that I think is very underrated, or at least not very well known right now, despite that she writes some pretty awesome horror. So I'm excited to try out this series of hers. Again, the first collection of novellas for this series was also out of print, so trying to get a hold of that, as I mentioned. But anyways, if you haven't checked her out, I would definitely recommend doing that. Anyways, so thus ends the book haul. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.